What do you make of people who claim that they are being influenced by voice-to-skull mind control technology? Well, I was asked a very interesting question during my last video where I showed that they were using children to fake aliens during military abductions by our government and others. They asked, what AI do I think that Philip K. Dick was talking about when he was unalived by those in power? Well, this is a question that's near and dear to my heart because I happen to be a huge Philip K. Dick fan. He's one of my favorite authors, and I have studied this extensively, and I can tell you that I believe Philip K. Dick was an early beta test. They were testing early mind control technology on him, and I have very good reason to believe this. For those who don't know about Phil Dick, you know his work. You know The Man in the High Castle and Total Recall and all these great sci-fi stories that he wrote. Well, he also wrote about his own experiences with what he thought was an alien intelligence. Phil Dick could be considered an alien experiencer. He thought that this intelligence was an alien satellite that was circling the Earth, and he called it VALIS, the Vast Active Living Information System, and VALIS would give him periodic downloads. And he wrote about this VALIS story in a fictionalized form in Radio Free Albemuth, which was also turned into a movie that was kind of interesting. It had Alanis Morissette in it, and if you haven't seen it, you should probably seek it out. It's pretty good. And at the time that Phil Dick was having these VALIS experiences, he was living in the San Francisco Bay Area. And during that time, I have shown that the San Francisco Bay Area was a hotbed for mind control testing, MKUltra projects that were being run under the CIA and Mossad and others, specifically under a CIA station chief named Harold Chipman. And they were doing all kinds of testing on people, including the people in the counterculture, the hippies and the Haight-Ashbury. And Phil Dick was living in Berkeley at the time, and he was right there in the middle of all of it. Most people don't realize this, but Dick's wife, Tessa Dick, actually wrote a book about their time together and their strange experiences called Remembering Firebright. And she says quite clearly that they thought that they were under surveillance and under testing. They'd have strange things happen, electromagnetic things happen in their house. Their radio would go on. They would hear strange voices. They'd have lights show up in the middle of the room that they called Firebright, and they would hover in the middle of the room like a hologram. And let me just read a portion of this to you here. That one afternoon about a week earlier, a yellow van pulled up out front, and workmen in white coveralls brought in about a dozen large unlabeled cardboard boxes into the vacant apartment next door. They were curious, so when they found the door unlocked, they went inside. They found all sorts of electronic equipment in the hall closet and a working telephone in the kitchen of that supposedly vacant apartment. Strange cars began pulling up in the alley behind their apartment late at night and sitting there for up to half an hour at a time. Flashes of light danced around inside the apartment, and those lights seemed to have no source. We also experienced some strange dreams, including one dream that they both shared. The visions stopped when they moved out of that apartment, so they can't help thinking that the electronic equipment in the next apartment had something to do with Phil's experience. So, that's interesting. That's right from Philip Dick's wife's own mouth that they thought that there was something very interesting going on, and that was why Phil Dick was having his experiences. And they aren't completely off base because there was a lot more things just like this going on at that time. At this point, just about everybody has heard about the infamous Stanford Research Institute psychic and remote viewing experiments, only I believe that those weren't actually psychic experiments at all. I think the psychic angle and the remote viewing angle was a cover story, and let me tell you why. At one point, they had Uri Geller, the great Israeli psychic that came out there, and let me read this account here, that Uri Geller was once being monitored by the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory Group, during a metal bending session there at that lab. They recorded him with audio tape, filmed him with videotape, and photographed him with a variety of still cameras, including one that was sensitive to thermal infrared radiation. Afterwards, they developed all the film and saw that the infrared camera had caught what seemed to be two diffuse patches of radiation on the upper part of one of the laboratory walls. The patches grew in intensity for a few frames, then over the next few frames, they diminished to nothing. Then they came in and went back out again. When they checked the audio tape they had made during the experiment, they found that amidst everything that they had been recording, there was a distinctive metallic-sounding voice that was unheard during the actual taping, but now had become clearly audible. In the days and weeks that followed, Peter Crane and others, these were the guys that were doing the testing from Livermore, They began to feel that they were collectively possessed by some kind of tormenting, teasing, and hallucination inducing spirit. They'd all been in the laboratory together setting up some experiment, or one of the fellows and his wife and children would be at home just sitting around when suddenly in the middle of the room there would be some weird hovering, almost comically stereotypical image of a flying saucer, always about 8 inches across in a gray and fuzzy monochrome, as if it were some kind of hologram or ray projection. Uri Geller claimed to be controlled by a giant robot computer located aboard a flying saucer that he called Spectra or Rhombus 4D. And I know from other accounts that they called it Huva as well, and when this was used on other people, they would call it things like Ra or Seth. In any case, among the few intelligible words on the audio tape were 2 or 3 together, which Kennett realized, we'll get to who he is in a second, he recognized as the code name of a very closely held government project. The project had nothing to do with psychic research, and neither it nor the code name was known to any of the other people at Livermore. It was as if whoever or whatever had produced the code name on the audio tape had known that Kennett would soon arrive on the scene and had saved this special shiver down the spine just for him. So whoever was beaming something at Uri Geller in that lab that caused a heat signature on the wall that came in and dissipated and disappeared under infrared, a microwave, was putting voices into his head, was putting voices into the room that could be picked up with special equipment, and the people who were there to witness it and testing him were also getting these strange hallucinations as if they were putting things into their mind. They were causing them to hallucinate and have these spirit experiences. And one of the messages that was encoded and put into that message was there specifically for this guy named Kennett, who was a CIA guy that was running the experiments. His real name is Christopher Canfield Green. And he would know that this was a code that was put in there for him, so he would get the message that there was another intelligence agency or asset or somebody beaming that in, sending a message to them. Now, this is interesting because Uri Geller was absolutely Mossad. I think he even admits it at this point. But his handler, Andrea Puharish, who was the Army mind control expert from Edgewood Arsenal, he was also a CIA MKUltra contractor and worked with them. He met Geller by being set up with as I understand it, a Mossad colonel. That was what he said in an interview, that a Mossad colonel actually introduced them and he became his handler, brought him over to the U.S. And you have to wonder who was actually beaming what at Geller. Was it an American intelligence agency? Was it the NSA, the NRO? Andrea Puharish went off to work with a woman from the NRO to experiment on children. Or was it Mossad, that Puharish was there acting as a liaison with Geller? I don't know specifically. I have no purview into that, but they were sending messages to the other feds in the room. And I think that whole thing is very interesting, that the psychic testing, the remote viewing testing at Stanford, if you had the right equipment, you could tell that somebody was actually being beamed with a technology, a voice-to-skull technology, that would make them appear to have psychic ability or remote view, and it wasn't necessarily them doing it. Oh, and by the way, the guy they call Kennett, real name Kit Green, is actually a medical doctor. He's a neurologist, a neuroscientist, and he was the guy doing all the brain scans on the people who were being damaged by the same technology in the UFO world and at Skinwalker Ranch. As I understand it, he was doing brain scans, and he was also involved, and it's the same technology as is being used in the Havana Syndrome cases. So let me just distill this all down for you. I think they have been using microwave weaponry, voice-to-skull technology for many, many decades, since at least the 1940s, testing it on various people in small test populations. I think that Philip K. Dick was one of them, and they were trying to upscale it from using it on individuals to using it on entire populations. I think all of the UFO abductees and voices and visions that people are getting. Andrea Puharish, who ran Uri Geller, was also running the Law of One hoax with Carla Ruckert and Don Elkins. It's all the same technology. Ra, Huva, Spectra, VALIS, Seth. Jack Sarfati, the physicist and UFO guy, was also claiming that he was getting metallic voice phone calls back in the 1950s. I think they've been doing this to people for a very, very long time, and I think just now they're scaling it up, taking it out of beta test, and using it on the entire population. I think Israel and Mossad has a huge hand in it. I think there is a huge push out here in the social media, conspiracy, spiritual, woo-woo world right now to desensitize everybody to the idea of entities, of aliens, of demons, of ultra-terrestrials, of voices outside of you that can download into you, that can talk to you and interact with you. So that when this is happening on a wide scale, you are desensitized to it. That you're not going to question why the same feds who told you you can fly outside your body and you're being mined for loosh from entities are the same feds that were building the non-lethal weapons programs over here that can actually do it to you. They have been systematically pre-programming you with alien and spiritual propaganda that they have been hiding behind while they clandestinely built these systems behind all of our backs, so that when this rolls out on you and your family and your loved ones and your kids, you're just going to lay down, you're going to say it's beyond us, it's the aliens, it's the entities, and you're just going to accept that jackboot on your neck, and what's left of humanity's free will die with a whimper. Happy holidays! The Museum of Tarot online shop is your source for the most cutting-edge consciousness enhancement devices and research tools available today. From our Dyson and Aura goggles and phone kits to our mind-to-mind psychic training device, our Halo Pulsar electromagnetic protection device, and our suppressed reprint books. There's something for the seeker in all of us. So stop on by today at museumoftarot.com.